Hi, I'm Niki, the Obsessive Bookseller. Welcome to my channel. Today marks the first day of my third month of my Library TBR challenge that I'm running with my patrons, and I got some goals. I have 5 books from my initial TBR of 10 that I would like to get through this month, and I think I'm going to have a chance to do all but one of them, so that's pretty good. If you're new to this video series, I'll link a playlist in the description. But essentially, we're focusing heavily on library books this month. And my personal goals are to read a couple of random draws from my massive wish list, and then also to read through my entire library holds list. Books that I've been stalling on reading for months. Right now, the oldest one I have on there, I put on hold back in September of last year. And I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse, but my library only lets me put 10 books on hold at a time. So in the last couple months, I've been able to read 5 of the titles off of that hold list, and I have 5 to go. I'm gonna do my best to try to finish it up this month. If I'm lucky, I might be able to make time for all 5 of them. But as one of them is a 32-hour audiobook, if I get 3 or 4, I'll be happy. Anyway, this is the final month of the challenge, and I'm having a ton of fun with it so far. So, carryover from last month, I am still reading So Good They Can't Ignore You with my patron Dave. This was one of the few nonfiction books I had on my lineup, and Cal Newport is my guru. I've loved everything I've read by him. I watched a TED Talk where he discussed this book, and I feel like I probably could have been okay with just that, but he's such an important part of my new lifestyle, like his philosophies, that I wanted to read everything in his arsenal. And as I am career focused right now and trying to really maximize my career capital, this is the book we going with. And it's good. I'm a couple chapters in. We're just doing a chapter a night. And I really like the research that Newport puts into his books. Like his nonfiction stuff, he'll tell a story about a famous person in history who exemplifies what he's talking about really well, and then figures out a way to tie that into the point that he's trying to make. And I really like that kind of structure of writing that he's got. So it's been interesting so far. I've learned more about Steve Jobs than I ever knew. But because I listen to his podcast so often, I'm not thinking I'm going to get anything out of this that I haven't heard before a ton of times, but I think it's still worth a read. And then starting tomorrow, after I finish up a couple of other side reads, I will be diving into another one of my holds, Demon's Bluff by Kim Harrison. This is the latest release in the Hollow series, one that I have enjoyed thoroughly, and I feel like I'm behind on the series, even though this one came out relatively recently. Usually I get an arc for these and read them about 6 months ahead of when they come out on the market, but I think this has been out, it's approaching a year, and I still haven't gotten to it. But today is the day. Very excited for this one. So we'll see what kind of damage we do. I got a lot of good momentum. I've been having one of the most difficult weeks that I've had in a long time, so I don't even remember what my last check-in covered. I'm pretty sure I had finished the Orson Scott Card book and I was looking to pick up the next couple of books for the challenge. And up on the lineup was Demon's Bluff by Kim Harrison. This is the most recent book in the Hollow series. The last book felt kind of like a setup book. It was a little bit meh, but as like meh from a series that you really love, from an author you really love, is still a pretty decent read. So I went into this one expecting to enjoy it, but not hoping for anything earth-shattering. But I gotta tell you, like, I'm about the 30% mark. This is so exciting. I am loving the direction this story is taking in this one, and I'm all dazzly-eyed. Like, I need to just drop everything and continue reading this book. This is the culmination book that we've been working towards seemingly through the whole series. Like, I am so excited to read this one now. So with this new direction in mind, I cannot wait, and I am having a ton of fun with this one. Which is funny though, because I have a buddy read starting in 3 days. I am not going to be done with this in time. And in fact, my new reading strategy, I'm probably going to put this down for a week or so while I read that book club buddy read book and then come back to it. So, wah wah. But very nice to be having really exciting reads on my lineup. And with my patron Dave, I've been reading So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. This one has been okay so far. I listen to his podcast all the time, like every week, and I've gone back and watched past episodes. And so a lot of the principles that are in this one, he talks about in his weekly podcast episodes in depth and with newer, more updated information and ways of thinking about these issues. So I am not getting a lot out of this one, but I love listening to his podcast just because I like immersing myself with the different ideas. And so reading this one has been a pleasant experience so far. And I like the anecdotes. And I also think it was summed up pretty well in a couple of the TED Talks on it and Google Talks that I've heard him give. But in any case, as with any nonfiction, it's supposed to kind of infuse you with the ideas for a week or so, let you percolate on it, and from that decide how you're going to move forward. Inspiration, if you will. So liking that one so far, but nothing revolutionary. I did get around to doing my random draw for this episode, and not only have I lost the footage of me doing that, but I have lost the paper that showed what the books were and what the numbers were. And so I don't remember the number, but I do remember what was picked because I was debating between them and doing research on them for a couple of days. And I have already had one video this week that is completely unusable. It was like an hour long to film and then another maybe 4 or 5 hours messing with it in the edit process. And it's just technical difficulties. So I'm already going to have to refilm one video and my patience is thin. So you're just going to have to take my word for it that I went through the process honestly and have my books for you. And that's the funny thing, like I show myself picking the numbers as if I'm going to make them up, or like if I was going to make them up, how would you know? Like how would you know if the book that I picked wasn't the one that it was actually the one that showed up in my list? I don't know. It just seems like going through the motions to prove my honesty. You guys don't care. All you care about is that I'm showing you books that I'm picking from. I think about this stuff a little bit too much. I always watch other YouTubers in general go out of their way to prove that they're doing things legit. I do remember that one of the numbers was like 500 something and the other one was like 504 more something. So they were so close together. I'm like, I have 1,800 books on my list. You couldn't have given me more variety of number choosing from there? Like sometimes I don't trust that random number generator. That was a lot of babbling. Ultimately, the books that are up for consideration are Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd. This book has been following me around my entire book selling career. I mean, it sold tons of them. Really popular book club pick and kind of a short fiction novel. And if I'm not mistaken, they even made a movie out of it. I've rarely been interested in fiction novels without even like a smidgen of fantasy or science fiction components. But of all the ones that I could choose from, this one is on the upper side of more interesting. And sometimes reading things outside of my norm kind of reinvigorate my love of reading. So that one might be an odd but good pick. In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This one's been on my TBR since I first read House on the Cerulean Sea. The trouble is, I've recently read Somewhere Beyond the Sea, the continuation to Cerulean, and it was a hard book for me. Very angry. I love the kids, and I love the story progression, the overall found family vibes that it offers, but oh, it was really heavy. And I agree with everything that the author is angry about, but I am like a raw nerve right now and don't think I can handle like other people's pain. I was watching Top Chef the other day and there was an emotional thing with one of the contestants and I'm like on the couch sobbing. I'm like, I need a minute, okay? So we're probably not going to read this one until I'm in a little bit of a better spot. And by the way, nothing super serious going on. Just, you know, moods ebb and flow, energy levels ebb and flow. I don't need to be adding to my problem by my reads also being difficult ones. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, someone told me that that one was kind of a harder read anyway. And my third and final possibility is Rejection Proof. Years ago, I remember seeing some sort of YouTube video where a person was going out of their way to be rejected constantly. And I thought there was a book with that, but I am not sure if that's the same book or if it's just a book in that same vein. I'll have to do some research on it. But either way, I kind of like the idea of all of the growth and productivity self-help things that I've gotten into. I've never read anything quite like it before. And so I think it would be especially interesting. So that's my appeal to that one. So I will update you as soon as I have figured out which one I'm going to read. Important update, my patrons have voted to extend the challenge an extra quarter. And so we'll be running it through the end of September. I'm excited for this. The random draw component is something I've been trying to figure out a way to integrate into my other challenges in general. The fact that I get to keep running it for another 3 months makes me very happy. As far as my library holds are concerned, I'm going to see what I can get through of those initial 10 by the end of this month. And then beyond that, I have been slowly adding in other new things that look interesting. So we'll kind of start fresh with the new lineup for next quarter. But in the meantime, I've gotten creative with my reading structure. Who's surprised? I implemented a weird reading schedule that I've been wanting to try for a couple of years now, and finally it makes sense because I've whittled my way down from so many outstanding series. It involves a rotation system of different series that I'm in the middle of, with the intent of not maxing above 3 going at one time. And I have a strong desire to do something this regimented right now because I'm suffering a lot of decision fatigue. And so with this, I know what I'm reading next. I can go at a more natural pace because I think a lot of my antsiness while I'm reading, like that constant rush to hurry through the book that I'm currently on so that I can pick up the next one because everything's time sensitive. This new system is supposed to help that in a sense because I know that I've got everything kind of planned out and I will get to it eventually if I just work naturally. Most of them that are front loaded are library books, so it'll work for the challenge. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Yeah, I've shown these before. These are my high priority shelves. There's a lot missing right now because I'm using a bunch to film for another video. But I've got everything lined up here as I'd like to read it. I need to water these plants. Okay, so consider this in sets of 3. So I've got a rotation system going where every third book I come back to a book in that current series. And as Reading Disquiet Gods brings me up to date with that series, by the time I hit that slot again, I get to pick something else to put in. And because I'm still focusing really heavily on finishing incomplete series, I've got the final book in the Dandelion Dynasty. And then after that's done, I'd like to continue on with the Shadows of the Apt until it's finished, and then skipping ahead from there, dive into Echo of the Fall. And as it happens, with the Sookie Stackhouse series that I've chosen to focus on, and the Orson Scott Card Ender universe stuff, everything kind of wraps up at the same time, and then I'll get to start with 3 whole new series all at once, and I think that's going to be fun. It's a cool little reading rotation system that helps keep me focused. And I love the fact that I've got an urban fantasy, a sci-fi, and a fantasy series going at any one given time because the variety will really help the rotation process. You know, one of the other things that's been making it really difficult for me to just bask with a book and not really worry about deadline or anything has been book clubs and buddy reads. Those starting has been incredibly stressful for me because it means whatever book I'm on, I have to hurry and read through to the end before I can pick up the new one, because I am doing one book at a time, and that's been an improvement. So with this new rotation system, if I'm reading a book and I get to a buddy read schedule, like that book club that I have coming up in 3 days, no matter where I am in that rotation book, I'm going to just set it down, find a good stopping point, maybe the end of a section, and read the scheduled one before returning back. Like, I kind of am looking at it with Cal Newport's eye on projects. When he says work on one thing at a time, he doesn't mean only have one project at a time. He just means when you're concentrating on one thing, give it 100%. And so I think instead of trying to bounce 2 books around at once, I'm just going to actually dive into the book club one and get back to the rotation one when that comes up. And all of this came from recognition of decision fatigue that I've been suffering, especially when it comes to books, and trying to figure out what it is about nonfiction reading and the way I used to consume series when I was a kid that I'm trying to get back. What was it about that made reading stress-free, so much fun, made me not watch the clock or worry about how many books I've gotten through or what's on the schedule? And I think this new system might help me find even more balance. It's funny, I'm always changing how I'm doing things and going through trial and error. And I do finally acknowledge that I'm never going to find the perfect system that's going to make my reading just amazing. But I've gotten close. But what's more likely is that my moods change, my needs change. And so instead of one system, I need to have several different types of systems that will work in different situations. and I can just flex how I'm doing things based on what I feel like I need for myself at that time. And right now, we need some structure. The thing that's going to knock me off of this one is when I start getting antsy about all of those new releases and new series that I haven't been able to start yet. In fact, you can see all of these books on the shelf back here. That's my setup for a video that's coming out at the end of the May about all of the new series that I want to start. There's too many books to read. So this system will work great now, but as soon as I start getting antsy about all of those that I haven't started, I'll probably do something different. I did notice with the Charlaine Harris and the Ender stuff, there's like 10 books to go before I finish those out. So maybe what I'll end up doing is picking just one really long one to be into and then switching it out with a couple of these like shorter trilogies or whatnot. Then at least I'll be able to start series before the end of the year. I might do that. Oh, but for right now, the next 5 books in the lineup are library reads. So this ought to get me through to the end of next month at the very least. I just finished So Good, They Can't Ignore You, and I'm a bit underwhelmed. Possibly because a lot of the major points and concepts have been drilled into my head from his podcast that this was kind of rendered irrelevant. But another explanation could be the general tone, like it's written from a very elitist standpoint. Like someone obviously at the top of their field, MIT graduate, goes on to be a tenured professor, someone who is already chasing the highest of highs that you can get in your field. How is something like that supposed to relate to a peon of an office worker that I am? He does a really good job of giving real-world examples and advice on his podcast, which is why I'm cutting this book some slack. This book was also written really early in his career, before he'd had a chance to get feedback from people who are living more normal lifestyles. And I think if nothing else, coming away from this book, I have more ideas on how I can expand my worth to my employer than I had before, and ways to market myself if my job when it goes kaput. But from a recommendation standpoint, definitely don't read this if you haven't read Cal Newport before. Only pick this up if you're reading it more as a fan of the author rather than to really extract anything meaningful from it, at least from my perspective. Slow productivity and digital minimalism are easily some of the best nonfiction works that I've read, so I'd recommend those first for sure. But finishing that, I am finally on to my random draw book, which is Rejection Proof. I'm in the 2nd chapter, and I am having trouble with the relatability of this one as well. The author is originally from China, and the culture there's a lot more focus on not disappointing your elders and following a path that your parents would approve of. Tons of pressures, like well beyond what I've ever had to face. And the author began his journey by wanting to be an entrepreneur, and so that drive to create something where he could be a billionaire by the age of 25. And so the height of ambition in which he's chasing is not particularly relatable for me, but given the harsh judgment in his culture, the fact that he was able to then overcome that fear of rejection, like a deep core thing, and come out on the other side of it willing to face anything, like that's the part that I'm finding really inspiring. So with chapter 2, we haven't really gotten into the meat of it yet, but this is indeed the same person who did the TED Talk that I watched a few years ago, and I thought it was interesting. So I'm up for building some resilience, so this seems like a good avenue for that. We'll see how it goes. I'm learning a few things about myself throughout this challenge experiment with the library. So I was reading Demon's Bluff and got about to the halfway point before book club started, and we picked up Generation Ship. And I'm getting close to the end of this one, but the problem is, while spending time on that one, my hold for this one, the audiobook hold, expired at the library. And I am now at the back of the line with like 15 people. It's going to be several months before I can get back to this one. And I could have made a huge rush through this book, finished it quickly so it didn't expire, started that book a bit late, but that's the exactly kind of thing that has been driving me crazy about my reading habits over the last few years. Like, I do not like reading on a schedule. It provides a lot of stress, and it makes me incredibly anxious, and it makes me not enjoying the book that I'm with. And I was enjoying this one tremendously. Like, it has the potential to be a 5-star read, And I didn't want to speed that up for the sake of a time crunch. So when I finish that other one in a couple of days and want to go back to this one, I'm going to have to purchase it. It's no longer a library book because there's no way I'm waiting months. And I do a tandem read. I could read this physically, but that's beside the point. Like, I want to do the audio version on this one. The library is there to serve me. And really, I think that might be the key on why I may not utilize my library as much in the future. Like, it's great if I don't have any deadlines. It's great if I can check out the book immediately after finishing another book and be able to start it right away. But usually what happens is it becomes available. I know I'm going to want it in a week or so, but if I decline to check out the loan immediately, then it'll be like a 3-week wait before I get it again. So yeah, the timing really sucks on it. So if I check it out, I usually only have 2 weeks, and I better get on that and hurry. And it's just stressing me out. It works a lot better on those titles where you're able to renew it. A lot of the stuff that I've been reading lately, they usually only have one copy, and it's like tons of people waiting for it. So time and place makes a difference. The random draws are great because I usually end up picking something that I don't need to put a long hold on, or a nonfiction that I can work in between other things. But I think the insight is, if I stop utilizing the library quite as much, I probably will find that my reading experience increases. Because like the Heretics of Dune that I was reading also got returned before I was finished with it, and I didn't want to try to rush through that one either. So in all of this, I am prioritizing the reading experience over anything else, including being timely with it. And it's probably going to cost me more money, but you know, that's why I have a book budget, is so that I can make my reading life better. I just have to stop buying so many special editions, and then I can afford it. Let's talk about new additions to my library. One of my favorite things to do is to shop the new titles that are added every week or so. And because I have no financial stake in the game, I can add as many as I want to my wish list without any consequence. In my opinion, the most exciting one that got added, The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. First book in a brand new series, and one that I am just eager to get to. I am currently 22nd in line for the audiobook, so here's hoping they acquire a few more copies rather than just the one. Angie Kills a King by Evan Lycum. I saw a cover for this one floating around as an early release from the Broken Binding, and it intrigued me. I don't read too much into what books are about because I like to go in pretty blind, but something to do with like a magical face mask. Like it imbues powers on the person who wears it or something to that effect. I'll probably wait a little while before diving into that one, give the booktube sphere time to vet it for me and see if it's any good. Not that I have time to dive in anyway of my own accord. A nonfiction called Limiting Beliefs by Dr. Josh Axe. I find the brain fascinating, and ways in which it kind of digs itself into these little holes and gets on these like repeating tapes, things that might not necessarily be true, but you believe them with every fiber of your being because the brain has convinced you that it's true. So limiting beliefs kind of hinder what you're able to accomplish in life, and I don't think I've ever read anything specifically on that, and I'd really like to see if this book has any methods on how to broaden your scope. This wasn't new to the library, but new as a personal acquisition to my wish list. The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. Watched the movie years and years ago as a child and liked it well enough, but the new dragon one, I've been wanting to pick up a copy of that. I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons, and I would like to read that one, but I would also like to read what I think was the book that initially put him on the map. What I am frustrated by is the dragon one has such a beautiful modern looking cover. Like, why hasn't that same company gone back and reprinted The Last Unicorn so that there's a matching set? The book collector in me is a little offended by that. His Face is the Sun by Michelle Kapora. This is a first in a new series. Never heard of the author before, but almost purely a cover ad because I thought it was absolutely beautiful. Looking further into it, it's based on Egyptian lore, and if my library has it marked correctly, it's young adult. But I liked the vibes. Something to look into for sure. Library Girl by Pori Horvath. There have been a slew of books set in cafes and libraries ever since the beginning of the cozy fantasy movement, and I am all for it. I love the idea. Who doesn't want to read a book about someone growing up in a library? Don't answer that, but I want to read something like that. It looked cute enough that it's been added to the list. It's not one that I think will jump above anything else, but hey, you never know. It could be picked for a random draw at one point, and I would be happy with it. And Ordinary Time by Annie B. Jones. Lessons learned while staying put. This book seems perfect for an introvert. And a lot of literature, social media, and everything will have you thinking that to live life to its fullest, you need to be getting out there. You need to be traveling the world, living commitment-free, enjoying yourself. And I've never really resonated with that because I'm such a homebody and I find a lot of joy. And I actually felt like something was wrong with me for the longest time because I didn't want to go many places. Now, I do enjoy adventuring around the US Southwest. In my mind, that's two totally different things, like exploring my own environment, going on different hikes and stuff, very different. Way off track. Anyway, so the book, because the idea of the book sings to me, I don't even know what it's about or what I might get out of it, but I think it's one that I would like to pick up, so hopefully I get some inspiration. Can pat myself on the back for wanting to be a homebody. And that's everything. I'm kind of filming this segment a little earlier than I usually do, so if anything absolutely remarkable hits my library before the end of the month, I'll jump in and add another clip. But for the most part, got a lot of good acquisitions, not as many as I did last month, but I think this month I've been a little more picky for whatever reason. But always fun to look at new books. I finished Rejection Proof, and as it happens, I've read part of that book before. It wasn't until I was getting into it where I was like, I'm having this odd sense of deja vu. Have I read this? But I didn't have any record of doing so on either my library or Goodreads. And I think what happened was I listened to the author on a TED Talk and thought the idea was really cool. He said a 100-day challenge for himself where he was going to go set himself up to be rejected. Only problem is on day 3 or 4, instead of getting rejected, there was this like beautiful spark of humanity of something coming through for him with an odd request. And when I first picked up the book, it was less about the science of rejection and all of that and more about this person's narrative and story, how we got from ambition to YouTube famous. And to have all this success in just a couple days into this challenge, I'm like, what does he know about rejection? And this is the most validating thing you can have happen to you, is like suddenly become famous overnight. And also it was almost a dead-on repeat of what I had heard in the TED Talk. And I think I got fed up and put it down. I feel like the author lost credibility a little bit in his ability to help me understand rejection a bit better. That's why I put it down initially. Picking it up this time, I didn't remember all of that baggage until I was already past the point where I had put it down. And by then, apparently the author continued making attempts at rejection for the entirety of that 100 days. And because now he was famous for it, he became really good at analyzing, researching, figuring out what is going on when you're getting rejected. And so all of the stuff that I was missing at the beginning does happen throughout the rest of the book. I just didn't give it long enough, and really probably obviously wasn't that interested in the topic to begin with, or else I kind of would have pushed through. But I came away with a lot of really interesting things from this. I was just writing down the points, and it wasn't until I finished the book where I started rereading the points and figuring out, oh, actually there are a number of places in my life where I can apply this, and I already feel myself like standing a little bit straighter and being willing to ask for things that I need a bit more than I was before, which is cool, right? You read a self-help book and you kind of want it to have an impact on your behaviors in a positive way, and I'm already seeing some of that. My favorite thing from the book, by far the most valuable tidbit of information, is when someone rejects you, it says more about them than it does about you. It's a combination of their past experiences, expectations, personal biases, and risk aversion. And so if you can take some of that rejection off of you and put it onto them, it helps the process a little bit. It makes you a little more brave to ask for what you want. A couple other things I really loved. Changing your perspective when you're talking to someone. People are not adversaries, they're collaborators. And so when you get a rejection, treat the other person like they're a team and you're trying to figure out a way through an obstacle, asking why, getting clarification on why they rejected, and seeing if you can work to some sort of compromise solution. Arguing with someone, on the other hand, is a surefire way to ensure a no stays a no. Try to stay in that collaboration mindset if you can. Rejection also doesn't always mean that you're wrong or that your idea is wrong. And really fascinatingly, the thing that I'm going to have to take the most time to percolate on is that rejection in itself is kind of a neutral event. What you do with it, what your brain does with it, can either spin it into a negative or a positive experience. It's really up to you to choose. And all of this ties into self-worth and personal confidence in a way that is particularly interesting. And this is a direct quote: "Most don't ask for what they want due to fear of rejection. We stop making requests to the detriment of our dreams, aspirations, and relationships." Because we get into that too timid, we don't want to bother people mindset. Or like we'll put off asking for what we want until the timing is right. Meaning we're just procrastinating that fear of getting rejected. So I really liked it. A positive experience. I think I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. A lot more heavily narrative driven. Like the story that made him famous is the shtick. And then the rejection stuff is kind of secondary, to be totally honest, but it's still very interesting, and I was able to extract a lot from it. The donut story is probably my favorite one, and that's the one you can find online. That wasn't exactly an episode of Shelf Help because I didn't apply it to my reading, but a good nonfiction snippet nonetheless. Okay, so since I finished Rejection Proof, I have about 5 days left before the end of the month, and I'm going to use that time kind of to clean house a little bit. This is the end of the 3rd initial quarter of our challenge. And because I'm restructuring how we're doing things going forward, we're only going to be doing this for another 2 months. So for us, it'll be July and August. And then we're going to switch over to running challenges for a full 4 months. So we'll get 3 a year. And we're not going to be voting on whether or not we're going to extend the challenge. We're just going to keep it at that solid 4 months. That means we'll be able to run 3 a year. And I've already made it clear that I would love for the Incomplete Series Challenge to be at least 1 of those slots per year, and my patrons seem very pleased with the idea, so very excited. But for sake of, we're going to continue this one for 2 months so we can get on schedule starting in September. To make all this super confusing, it goes live for my patrons before it goes live for the main channel, so whatever date I said, just add 3 months to that, and that's when you'll see it. So when I say September and it's probably January, get confused. It's okay. But anyway, I'm thinking of kind of cleaning house and wrapping up loose ends and everything before I dive into my 4th month of this challenge. And to do that, I've been continuing progress with Demon's Bluff. I had to put this down for another book. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that. But I am approaching the last 25% of this book and I'm loving it so much. I have been waiting for these moments for 10 books. I don't even know. I've been reading this series for so many years, up to date with it, love it so hard. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I wonder if she's going to do something with that. She's got to do something with that. Are we ever going to get something with that, or am I just crazy? Like, there was no closure for me. She's doing something with it finally, and I'm so excited. And it's been like a 3 or 4 book build up to this point. Superb use of momentum. One of the reasons I love this author so much is she writes much more like a high fantasy writer, in the sense that her stories have a lot of spacing and breadth and pacing and momentum builds. It's not like your typical urban fantasy where you get almost an entire arc in one book and then it comes down. I mean, the mini arcs happen just like normal, but the series momentum is unparalleled to anything I've read to date in this genre, and for that, it's one of my all-time favorites. I love it so much. Patricia Briggs has the potential, but she seems to be pulling back from the overarching story and diving more into just like the individual storylines, which I love, but it just doesn't hit me the same as a Kim Harrison book. So I am careening to the end. I am so excited. Cannot wait to read more beyond this one. I cannot believe I've let this sit on my shelves for like, it feels like a year. So yay, so good. And I will most assuredly be finishing that one soon. And that will mark book 7 of 10 read from my initial Library TBR. And then one of the other ones was The Extreme by K.A. Applegate. I think a ghostwriter actually took over by this point, but book 25. Currently reading this one as well. I had a commute and am 40% of the way through it on just one little commute, which is kind of funny to me. This one has not been remarkable so far, but finishing this one will mark 8 of 10 finished, and I can say when I finished the initial quarter of this challenge, my initial goals was those 10 specific books. 8 of 10 is so acceptable to me. I'm so excited. Next month, I will probably be showing you what my TBR looks like now, because all of the slots that I've freed up, I have refilled with high priority titles. So we'll give us a 2-month set for probably to get through about 8 books or so. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And then if I have time, I would really like to read the final book in the initial spirit animal arc and then finish this Tales of the Beasts, which is the prequel to the next set. And I'm already halfway through this thing. I would not recommend reading this one. Even though it says it's 0.7, it's deceptive because it sounds like you can read it at the very beginning of the series as a prequel to the entire thing. That is not true. There are spoilers in this thing left and right for stuff that happens in the first initial 7 books. So I started it, got some spoilers, FML, and put it down. And so I figure when I finish this one, I can go back to this. This is probably like, I don't know, 8 hours of audio book reading. Not that bad. But then I did a weird thing and I started a book on a whim. It's a weird thing for me. I'm so regimented in my reading. I have so many things planned ahead. But I caught some sprayed edges on a post that someone did, on a video that someone did. I'm like, oh, like that book is beautiful. I don't even know what it is. And so I got to the point where they were talking about it and they revealed the cover. I'm like, ooh, that's pretty. It's probably some romantasy book that I'm not in the mood to read right now. No, it's a high fantasy series, a debut nonetheless. I'm intrigued, so I went and looked it up. The Raven Scholar, I don't even know the author yet, I haven't retained that information, but something about the book just sang to me in just the right way, and I felt relaxed because I had finished a lot of my challenges for the month. I'm like, I'm going to pick that one up. So I did. And I'm about a chapter in, and I'm going to kind of inch my way along. It's like an experimentation. Very excited. What little I got from the research I did, because I don't like to look too heavily into books before I pick them up, because anything I know about the book is automatically going to reduce my enjoyment as I'm going through it. So basic bare premises, some sort of competition format where there are 8 different houses, all represented by an animal, and somehow they're all going to compete. That's all I need to know. Like, it sounds so cool. And then the word scholar in the title makes me think something academically inclined. And from the first chapter, I really like the vibes that the story is giving off. But that's not really for my library challenge. My library didn't have a copy. I would have gladly picked it up for free. But one of the things, like the Goodreads ratings, it's got 1,000 ratings so far, and it's at like 4.5, so highly acclaimed. So I'll give all my love and attention to the Harrison book until it's done, and then I will focus on that Raven book because it's freaking cool. And while I'm reading that, on my commutes and stuff, I will inch forward the spirit animal stuff. So my last check-in will probably be my final one for this particular episode, and I'll let you know what I was able to do. It's going to be a really freaking busy week. For a housekeeping week, as far as reading goes, this one actually went pretty well. I was able to finish out a bunch of things that were kind of hanging over my head. So, finished Demon's Bluff. I freaking loved it. I have been waiting for the events that happened in this book to occur for years, at least a decade, and I'm so excited that she finally did something with this one specific plot point. And so now, like, there's definitely going to be another book, and I cannot wait. This was very exciting for me. I wish I had read it a year ago when it first came out. It's not quite my favorite of the series. I think Black Magic Sanction was the best. So I'm going with a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Isn't that great? This is book like 17 or 18, and I'm rating it that highly. And I feel like there is a lot of nostalgic factor playing into it, but they're just really good books. She's doing great. The first few I remember liking, but I don't think I was truly on board until we hit our stride by a book like 3 or 4. So if you like urban fantasy but want something with like a slow burn, gradually building plot, great momentum over the course of the series, and some amazing arcs, this is your gal. Then after finishing that, I read The Extreme by K.A. Applegate, plus a ghostwriter. This one was very obviously not written by her, and if it is, I'm sorry. But this one was pretty much as I remembered. I only remembered one plot point from it, and that's all that happened. This was not one of the more strong ones. In fact, when I did a reread of the series last time, I think I stopped at this book, and I can totally see why. It's just not very good. So I'm hoping the next one is better. It's one that I've read dozens and dozens of times as a kid and as a teen, and then just haven't touched it as an adult. So I'm really excited to be back in with that. And every time I read one, I put the next one on hold, and I am very gradually making my way through the audio versions. Finishing a series that I started for this channel, The Evertree by Marie Lu, part of the Spirit Animal series. Book 7, the final book of the first arc. I am considering the second arc of 8 books entirely on their own. I'm going to have to start a new series if I want to dive into those. I've read Marie Lu. I really like her Legend series. So the fact that this one was really boring for the first half was surprising to me because I expected a little bit higher, better quality of storytelling, but it was just a lot of logistical stuff and I didn't care for it. But the second half, we careened to the end. There was a lot of really good moments. And overall, I feel like a satisfying conclusion to this arc of the series. It's not the first one I would hand your kid, but if your kid is interested in it, it's passable enough. I wish the animals had been more prominent in this series. Like, the prequel did such a good job at setting them up and giving them personalities and really rich creatures. And I think only 2 out of the 7 books that I read really explored the relationship between the human and the animal in a way that was satisfying. The best one was book 3, the one with the panda bear on the cover. I really liked that one. And then a couple of the other ones got me with really good world building. So I don't know, overall, like, the animals in here, they're not strong enough to really leave an impact on you. They could be any animal that they're bonded with. They really don't even take a lot of care to highlight what makes these animals unique. I don't know. Finishing a series that I started for this challenge, I'm so excited. It means that for the sake of my incomplete series challenge, I have not started a single series this year that I have not wrapped up, which is a good feeling. So wrapping up Demon's Bluff and Animorphs brings me to 8 out of 10 books from that initial lineup that I was trying to read through of all the books that I had on hold. 8 out of 10! That's really good. I'm pleased with that. Since we are extending the challenge an extra 2 months, I am going to keep the 2 books on there that I didn't read yet and then add a whole bunch of others, and I'll introduce that in the next video, let you know what I'm hoping to read through within the next couple months. So as always, thank you so much for going through the ringer with me on this one. Let me know if you're running the challenge, how it's going for you. Link to my Patreon is in the description, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.